Welcome everyone to this forum. We have the candidates for the New Hampshire House representing Atkinson and Plaistow District 14 and Atkinson, Plaistow, Hampstead, and Kingston District 34. My name is Tatiana Carvajal. I am a long-term resident of Plaistow. I've been asked to moderate this event by the League of Women Voters of Southern Rockingham. The League of Women Voters, sorry. The League of Women Voters is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. The organization's mission includes empowering voters through candidate forums like this one to educate everybody, give people an opportunity to get to know the candidates and make informed decisions when they head to the polls. The League is a nonpartisan organization, doesn't support or oppose any candidates or parties. All the attendees except the candidates and myself, the moderator, will be muted tonight. So we will not be taking questions from the audience. We're very pleased that all the candidates have agreed to be here tonight and share their ideas with you. The way that we're going to work this tonight is each candidate will have 3 minutes to explain their qualifications and reasons for running for the New Hampshire House of Representatives. They will then, in randomized order, have another 3 minutes each to address some of the issues facing New Hampshire. And then in the final round, each candidate will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. This forum is being recorded. It's being broadcast on PlaistowAccess, and it will also be broadcast later on AtkinsonAccess. So with that, we will get started. So in alphabetical order, we will have Nancy Bishop kick off the first round.
Hello, I'm Nancy Bishop, and I'm running for state representative in District 14 to make New Hampshire a place that's good for families to live, work, and thrive. I was born in Lynn, Massachusetts, to a working class family, and I'm the daughter of a union member. This resonates with me in regards to the work, the minimum wage bill. Sadly, that did not get passed, and I really do think, I know from firsthand experience, the stability that it offers. And I think when people can give the governor a $31,000 raise, they certainly can get working people the living wage for the quality work that they do. I think with this pandemic, a lot of people are noticing the work of the people on the front lines, and we should value their work and we respect them for what they do. I've been active in Plaistow since 2016. I just moved here then in 2016 to be close to family. And I've kind of grown to love, not even grown to love, just fell in love with New Hampshire as soon as I got here. Everything was just a more reasonable pace. People are friendlier. I've gotten to know people in the area, and they all want New Hampshire to be a place where people are respectful and kind and honest. One of the things that makes New Hampshire a good place to live would be to have the paid family leave and medical act passed. I think all families at one point in time could use this in their lives. And I think that it allows people to carry on in difficult times without facing additional hardships. To go along with that, we have the second highest healthcare costs in the nation, and I think affordable healthcare should be a priority. I think we should expand Medicaid and allow people the public option. As far as industry is concerned, I feel that one of the potential revenue streams would be to develop renewable energy. And this would be great for the environment, which would sustain our tourism industry and would create good paying jobs. And
All right.
would, I'm sorry, just
All right,
would on the whole
Nancy.
improve the economy and the tax base.
All right, great. Thank you, Nancy. I think Kate, you're up next.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tatiana. And thank you so much to our local League of Women Voters for putting this event together. As you've just heard, I'm Kate Delfino. I'm a 23-year resident of Atkinson. My husband, Joe, and I have raised two wonderful sons in this community. Both of them are very successful Timberlane graduates. Joe and I own and operate our own small business here. And I'm also a paralegal. I work at a law firm in Merrimack, Mass. For years, I've been an active community volunteer and organizer as an advocate for parent and community engagement in our schools. It was my great honor to be elected to both the Timberlane School Board in 2012 and the Timberlane Budget Committee in 2015. As a member of the school board, I chaired the Community Relations Committee. I was a founding member of Timberlane's first Citizens Advisory Committee to examine family, school, and community engagement. And I was a founding co-chair of the Timberlane Parent Advisory Forum. Now I'm running for state representative because I believe that Atkinson and Plaistow need new representation in Concord to effectively address the challenges facing our state and to ensure that we emerge from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in a position of strength. As you can tell, I am very passionate about education, and that's one of the main reasons why my legislative priorities start with developing a balanced approach to fiscal policy that puts an end to our state's continued downshifting of the tax burden onto local property taxpayers. It's just not fair, and it's a terrible financial burden to our seniors and our young families. Over and over again, we see in our towns, and this is true in towns across the state, that we struggle to provide a high quality education to our children without taxing folks out of the homes they love. New Hampshire relies more on property taxes than any other state in the country. This is simply not sustainable, especially given what will likely be a revenue shortfall due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now more than ever, we must have a clear-eyed approach to develop viable long-term solutions to New Hampshire's revenue dilemma. Otherwise, we'll never get past it. I am ready and willing to tackle this challenge head on, and I hope you'll send me to Concord to do just that. I look forward to sharing more of my policy positions with you as the evening progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now we'll hear from Lisa.
Thank you so much. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. And thank you, Tatiana. It's been increasingly difficult, of course, to reach out to voters during the pandemic because we can't safely knock on doors. But my name is Lisa DeMeo. I live in Hampstead with my husband, David, and two of our 4 children. I grew up here in New Hampshire, and my parents moved us here because we had the best schools in the country. My dad retired from the Navy. This was the place they chose. I'm the youngest daughter to a single mom, and she went from baking cakes to sewing our school clothes to driving a forklift almost overnight. And I saw firsthand how hard that was. She worked 2 jobs to support our family and keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. And it was really heartbreaking when we had to sell the first home our family ever owned. My mom taught me about grit and determination and how parents will do everything they can for their kids. I remember how tired she was in those days, and I see that same tiredness in working families now. But my story is not unique. Families are working harder than ever to get by, and this crisis is yet another curveball. We need policies that will give families a chance to catch their breath and provide opportunities to get ahead. Growing up here in Hampstead meant my kids got the same great education that I did and all the benefits of a small community that worked together and watched out for one another. Now they're grown, and I want to make sure that other working families have access to the same things and more. It's become apparent to a lot of us just how important our local and state governments are. National elections certainly consume everybody's attention, but our state and local elections are where the decisions are made that really impact our day-to-day lives. protecting our resources like water and land, ensuring our schools have the resources and the funding that they need, and that our most vulnerable people have supports in place to help them. It's important work, and we need people in these offices who understand and are engaged in our communities. Folks who understand how hard it is for working families right now. I'm a small business owner too, and I know that our small businesses are the backbone of our towns. COVID's closed so many doors and left so many of us uncertain about what the future looks like. Many of those small businesses and the jobs they're responsible for are gone, but we can still do something to help those that remain. We need to invest in these businesses so we can bounce back once we've beaten the virus. We will need creative thinking in Concord to bring our economy and our small businesses back. We'll need to solve the childcare crisis that's led to thousands of women dropping out of the workforce this September because our schools were unable to open, and so many of them were left with no choice. We're facing systemic problems that are going to require systemic solutions. I'm a mom and a small business owner, and I can bring in a unique perspective along with some of my mom's grit and determination to Concord. And I ask for your vote so I can get to work for all of you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. All right, now go to Deborah DeSimone, please.
Thank you, Tatiana. My name is Deborah DeSimone. I've been a 35-year resident of Atkinson, New Hampshire. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to reach out to the general public where we can't, as Lisa mentioned, we can't knock on doors and approach people. It's not safe to do so. So thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to Tatiana Carvajal for moderating this. Thank you for everybody for coming tonight. Although you're in your homes doing this. Again, I've been here for 35 years as a resident. I began working at the Atkinson Town Hall in 1998 as the deputy tax collector, and in 1999 as the tax collector. And I can assure you there is not a financial difficulty in Atkinson insofar as the collection of taxes for the schools and for the town. There is no shortfall. Taxes are actually above schedule. So financially, Atkinson and Plaistow are okay. I'm also the chair of Family Mediation and Juvenile Services. Children and families, my passion. For the 6 terms that I've served in the House, 5 of those terms I've served on children and family law, and 1 of those terms I served in municipal and county. I would really, really appreciate your support for going back there. There's more to do to get the laws up to date to meet the needs of children and families in this state. Families fall apart sometimes. Children get into trouble sometimes. Families need help sometimes. And that's what these laws do. These laws help these people. And I can help you do that. I've been endorsed by the NRA. I've been endorsed by job creation because jobs are necessary. And one of my proudest is I've been endorsed by the ASPCA because of groundbreaking legislation that I brought forth last year, which means that animals are important when it comes to divorcing or separating couples. You have to take care of your animals too. I am proudest of that endorsement. I've been endorsed by many other groups, but those 3 I'm the proudest of, and I will uphold their support of me and keep working hard for those groups. I appreciate everything everybody does. I ask for your support, and I appreciate your support. Please vote for me on November 3rd. A vote for me is a vote for your representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Kay Galloway, you're next.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and also to Plaistow TV for the technical recording of this event. Bit of background, I grew up all 15 miles from here in Boxford, Mass. with my brother and 2 sisters, and my brother and his wife live in Plaistow. I graduated from UMass Amherst with a master's from Salem State. Worked initially after college graduation for the CIA for 2 years, then came home and taught, and then applied to go work for the Department of Defense school system. I worked for them in several countries for 39 years. 37 of those were on military bases in Europe. Began as a teacher, transitioned into management, and my last job, I was principal of the grades 7 through 12 high school at Naples, Italy. During that time, I was nominated for and won as a National High School Principal of the Year. Since coming to Atkinson, I've served as a library trustee, a trustee of the town trust funds, and the town budget committee. I've also served in leadership positions in our garden club, where I served as president. Presently, I'm president of the Friends of the Library, and in 2018, our Friends group was selected best in the state. I'm also a member of the Women's Civic Club and the Historical Society. What qualities do I bring to the job of a state representative? At a meeting once of the principals at our international school located at Brunsum in the Netherlands, under one roof, we had American, British, Canadian, and German school systems. Now, that was interesting. And you're probably thinking, holidays did you celebrate? Well, we celebrated Dutch holidays. And we're very lucky, as an American working on a federal holiday, you get double pay. So I never had a teacher absent on any American holiday. I would like to say that one time, one of my Canadian colleagues said, "You're so quintessentially American." And I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "You never take no for an answer." That means I like a challenge and I like to get the job done. In closing this segment, I believe that if we are to meet the challenges facing New Hampshire, my colleagues and I are prepared to meet the revenue and education challenges facing New Hampshire. And I'll go on those a little bit more in the next segment. Again, I ask for your vote. I'm Kay Galloway. I live in Atkinson, and it's a pleasure to consider representing District 14, Atkinson and Plaistow. Thank you.
Thank you, Gay. And now we will hear from George Hamblin.
So important to mask up everywhere you go. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is George Hamblin, and I want to start off by again, thanking the League of Women Voters, thanking Tatiana for making this happen tonight, and thanks, Dean, for pulling this all together, and everyone else to make this happen tonight. My background is I'm an information technology executive, and I'm very well known in the industry for being a collaborative problem solver. I also have a long background within financial services, a long history in the financial services sector as well. Moved up to Atkinson back in 1996 with my wife, Lisa, and my son, Jake. Jake is a proud and successful graduate of Timberlane. And my wife, Lisa, runs and manages tirelessly a nonprofit called Debbie's Treasure Chest, which is based out of Lawrence. And Debbie's Treasure Chest does more work in distributing clothes than anyone else in the Merrimack Valley. They do tremendous work. And I just want to give a shout out to her because with COVID and everything else, it's really been a challenge and she goes in every day. So I just wanted to give her a tip of the hat as well. So given that background, I just want to touch upon something that's been very discerning during the course of the last several years, which is the focus and the need that needs to be placed on two areas in particular. One is property taxes. The other one is education funding. And it's very easy to say that, well, we're going to cut taxes, we're going to increase education funding. But the problem is it's impossible to do one without the other. So if there's two numbers I want you to walk away this evening with and remember are the following. The first one is 320 million. 320 million is how much your property taxes have gone up since Governor Sununu became governor. It also means that's how much they've gone up since our incumbents have been in Concord as state reps. Now, part of this is related to the school funding, but the other part is also related to the fact that we have these things known as unfunded mandates or downshifting, which is what Kate was referencing a little while ago. Every time they have an unfunded mandate that comes down to the town has to deal with it, and our property taxes go up. And that's a problem because they're unfunded and unknown. To give you an example of this, there's an office in every town in New Hampshire called welfare office. And they're responsible for essentially making sure no one falls through the cracks and take care of any needs. The problem is unfunded. So if someone comes up with a need, automatically that's going to hit the budget. And so right away, the town budget is going to be off whack. So when you multiply the number of downshifts or unfunded mandates that come down, you can see how the property taxes can quickly get out of hand. So that's the first one. Again, that comes up to the tune of $320 million since Sununu took over as governor. The second number is the number 2. 2 refers to the per capita spending per pupil here in New Hampshire. We're only behind Hawaii when it comes to the amount of money that's being spent on education. Now, the problem is when you have that kind of spending, that money is actually not going to the classroom, but it's actually going outside of the classroom to infrastructure and other components that isn't actually getting down to the teaching level.
Right,
So-
we need to wrap it up here because 3 minutes are up. Go ahead.
So just
Close.
real quickly, okay, so real quickly, $320 million, your property taxes have gone up. And number 2, the amount of spending that's taken place in education. So my quick question to everyone here, and the thing to walk away was, when it comes to property taxes and school education funding, are you better off 2, 4, or even 6 or 8 years than you were before? So I'll just leave you with that.
Thank you, George. All right, next we're going to be hearing from Bob Harb. I think you're muted, Bob. I need to unmute.
My name is Bob Hunt.
There we go.
I'd like to, as all, thank the League of Women Voters for the second time in 2 years putting on this candidacy night. I enjoyed the last one, and I know we'll all enjoy tonight. I'd also like to thank the citizens of Atkinson and Plaistow, who last term elected me to my first term as state representative. While running a sessions.
Right, your audio is cutting out.
Can't hear you, Bob.
Bob, we can't hear you anymore.
I'm going to ask for a test. Can you hear me now?
There we go. There,
Okay,
yeah, we can hear you now.
So I don't
Try
know
not
where
to
you.
turn your face away from the microphone when you speak.
Okay, thanks. So I hope you heard that I attended 100% of the sessions in the House in Concord while conducting a full-time law practice. That is my profession. I'm an attorney at law. It's helped me immensely representing the communities at the State House. I am a member of the Resources, Recreation, and Development Committee. On that committee, we do a lot of work to protect our recreation, our lakes, our rivers, and also development and our water supply. And I've been happy to work across the aisle with all my friends on that committee to do a lot of positive work in the last 2 years. And I'd like to ask your vote so I can continue with that. In town, many of you know for numerous years, I've been the Plaistow Town Moderator. I have been the Assistant Timberlane School District Moderator for a number of years. And this last election, I was elected to be the actual moderator. And I'm proud to serve our communities in those roles. I'm a member of the St. Luke's Parish Pastoral Council. I am a director of the Plaistow Community YMCA. I've been involved in service clubs. I've been involved in horse societies. I am a member of the Plaistow Historic Society. My 2 children also attended all the schools in Plaistow and Timberlane Regional School District. I'm proud to be married to my wife, Cindy. We've been residents of Plaistow for over 34 years. I'm really asking for your vote and help to send me back to Concord. I just started to learn about building relationships, building the effort needed to make a change in Concord. And I'll talk more about that in the second session. So again, thank you for this opportunity that you, the voters, gave me this last 2 years. And I look forward to hopefully continuing to serve you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right. Norm, you're up.
Well, thank you. And I also thank the League of Women Voters for tonight. I've been honored to serve the district, county, state as a state representative for the last 24 years. I live in Plaistow with my wife, Brenda, and we raised 4 sons. We have 10 grandchildren and 9 great-grandchildren. I received a BS in EE from the University of New Hampshire and an MS in EE from Northeastern University. I served in the United States Army from 1955 through 1958, followed with 5 years in the Army Reserves. I've served the citizens of Plaistow for over 50 years in various elected, appointed, and volunteered positions, as well as working with our youth as a scout leader involved in many service organizations. Currently, I am the ranking Republican on the House Ways and Means Committee, and in the past have served as chairman for 8 years and vice chairman for 6 years on the Ways and Means Committee whenever our party is in the majority. I served since 2007 as chairman of the Rockingham County delegation of 90 state legislators. I'm serving on the National Council of State Legislators Budget and Revenue Committee, and a member of the National Council of the Executive Committee Task Force on the State and Local Taxation and Telecommunication and Electronic Commerce Committee. I also serve on advisory committees such as the Great Bay Community College Advisory Board, the Pre-Engineering Technology Advisory Council for K-12 for the state of New Hampshire. I also have a membership in other professionals and civic organizations. The economy is my #1 concern with the state. We all know a poor economy means fewer jobs, lower wages, and less spending, as well as lower state revenues. We need to continue fiscally responsive state budgets that are truly balanced, continue to establish job creation, and incentivize retraining. Not over-regulating businesses, but utilizing our community colleges, improving math and science in grades K through 12, and make government more responsive to the economic needs of the state. Throughout my life, I have believed that it is up to each of us to make our community better and stronger. Whether as a legislator, selectman, assistant moderator, Boy Scout leader, civic club member, or husband and father, I have lived true to my beliefs in fiscal discipline, technology growth, and personal responsibility. I take seriously my role as a full-time citizen legislator in resolving my constituent problems. I would appreciate your vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Right, great. So we go to Mark Pearson.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and to you, Tatiana, and the folks in Plaistow Television. My name is Mark Pearson. I am the incumbent in the Floterial District 34, which is Atkinson, Hampstead, Plaistow, and Kingston. I've lived in Hampstead for 26 years. I'm a transplant from Massachusetts. I got my bachelor's degree from Williams College and was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. My master's degree is from Oxford, and my doctorate is from Boston University. And no, I'm not the town manager of Plaistow, whose name is also Mark Pearson, and we have some fun with that. I've been a clergy member for 46 years, and for the past 25 years, I've assisted my wife, Dr. Mary Pearson, in running a family practice medical center with 3 providers. I first entered politics at the encouragement of numbers of local people from both parties who have said that I could bring my compassion for people and my leadership abilities to Concord and do some good work for the state. I've served 2 terms. I've been on the Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs Committee. I chair the New Hampshire Commission on Deafness and Hearing Loss, I'm the convener of the Council for Deaf and Hard of Hearing School Students to make sure that they get what is promised and what is owed them by law in terms of assisting them with their hearing difficulties. And we are about to start a council that will do the same for elderly in extended care facilities. When the wells went dry up in the northern end of Main Street in Hampstead, I pulled together a task force of local people, especially those involved, and 3 state hydrogeologists. And while the immediate problems of those folks are being addressed in another context, I spearheaded the bill that would make it less likely for this sort of thing to happen again, that large volume commercial pumping facilities will not so pump water as to make citizens' wells go dry. So I wish to return to Concord to continue what I'm doing and fight for people. And these are not statistics to me, they're not line items. These are people I can name, members of my church, people who sit in the waiting room of my wife's family practice office, where my office is, people I know and I care for, to provide not just compassion, but compassion that translates into action and policy to people of the district and people across the state. My name is Mark Pearson. I'm the incumbent in the Floterial District 34. Please send me back to Concord so I can continue to do these things for people.
Thank you, Mark. All right, and now we finish the first round with Peter Tarosian.
Good evening, everyone. For those out there that are watching that don't know me, my name is Peter Tarosian. I'm one of your current state representatives representing the town of Atkinson and Plaistow, asking for your vote for a 3rd term. I'd like to first thank the League of Women Voters and Plaistow Community TV for making this event happen tonight. And I would also like to thank all you folks out there tuning in tonight, listening, so that you can make an informed decision. And I hope for the folks in Atkinson, they get a chance to come on later on and watch it when it's the recorded version of this is on. I'd like to give you a little bit of my background. I raised my wife, Mary Beth, and I raised our 2 sons here in Atkinson. I've been in town for over 36 years. They too both went to Timberlane. They both went on to college after attending Timberlane, and they both are professionals working in one's, well, they're both in tech. One works for a private equity firm down in Manhattan. I have 2 young granddaughters, age 7 and 2. And when I first decided to run in 2016, they were a big part of the reason why I decided to run. I want to see our young people have a good future. I think there's much we can do, and I've tried to do thus far to ensure that the young people have a good future. To give you just a quick, some bullet points on just some of my background. I'm a United States Coast Guard veteran. I have a business degree from Northeastern University, where I graduated magna cum laude. I'm the former owner, president, and CEO of an aircraft charter and leasing company. I'm a retired airline pilot. A couple of you may have heard of Eastern Airlines in T-Way, where I worked for a few years. I'm a current New Hampshire seasonal Marine Patrol officer. With my wife, Mary Beth, we co-founded, and I was the head coach of the Timberlane varsity ski team, where I coached many young students at Timberlane for 13 years. I'm currently serving on the Atkinson Municipal Budget Committee. And I'm proud to say, we heard some talk about taxes in the district. I'm proud to say that Atkinson's tax rate has gone down the last 2 years. And there's a lot, municipal budget committees, a lot of school budget committee can do to help keep taxes in place. When it comes to school funding, I'm a believer in having proper school funding. When I moved into the district in 1985, the budget of the Timberlane school system was approximately $15 million. Now it's north of $71, $72 million. So I believe money has been there. I think we've had a management problem down there in the past, and I hope we can address that. And make some changes to ensure quality education for our kids. I'd also like to point out that New Hampshire, unfortunately, is only one of the 50 states that has turned down federal funding to allow for school choice and charter school funding. And that's federal money. It doesn't come from your taxes locally or at the state level. So I'm hopeful that we can change that. The current leadership in Concord has elected not to accept that money. So I hope they change their mind. We can do that next term.
All right, need to wrap it up now.
Okay, I'll close it up. Closing it up, I would just say that I stand for no new taxes whenever possible. We have some tough choices to make because of the COVID. The state budget we have a severe revenue shortfall. In next term, state representatives collectively are going to have to work hard to trim the budget to align with the realities of COVID. If reelected, I want to work hard to get businesses back on their feet and to bring in the vaccines when they're available to New Hampshire to help facilitate that at the state level. Again, my name is Peter Terosian. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, with that, we have concluded our round one. So we will start on round two. In the second round, we'll have each of the candidates talk a little more about the issues that they see as most important in New Hampshire. I know some people already went into a few of them, so this is an opportunity to elaborate on some of those. And in this round, we will kick it off with Norm starting off. So Norm Major, please, you have the floor.
I'm next.
I will. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you, yes.
All right. I will briefly discuss 3 issues of concern for voters. First, saving the voters' tax dollars. Our county jail was exceeding its prisoners' capacity. Built to house 196 prisoners, the jail was housing more than 320 inmates in 2017. As chairman of the delegation, I established a committee including law enforcement, correction officers, prosecutors, judges, drug courts, and others to study the overcrowding and how we can fix it without building a new jail. The result is we reduced the average prison population from 328 in 2012 to now an average of 110. This resulted in closing 3 of the 7 cell blocks in the county prison. This was accomplished by better utilizing diversion programs, electronic monitoring, drug courts, and other proven systems without jeopardizing our citizens' safety. The county is saving the taxpayers millions of dollars each year because of these actions. The second one, improving education. I filed legislation that expanded the pre-engineering technology curriculum program in the public schools to students in kindergarten through grade 12 who are interested in engineering or allied engineering fields. I also filed a bill establishing a robotics education fund. Grants from the fund are available to any eligible public school for the purpose of financing the establishment of a robotics team and its participation in competitive events. Grant funds are limited to the purchase of robotic kits, stipends for coaches, and payments of associated costs from participating in competitions. The purpose of both programs is to motivate public school students to pursue educational and career opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, while building critical life and work-related skills. Lastly, examples of working together. This year, at the June 11th House session, the House Ways and Means Chairman, a Democrat, and myself, a Republican, presented legislation that updated the revenue estimates for the fiscal year 2021 and 2020. Because the pandemic prevented a full face-to-face committee meeting, we both worked with our own caucuses separately over 2 months via many Zoom meetings with economists, agency heads, Chamber of Commerce, Department of Revenue, and Legislative Budget Office. We both would meet over the phone after every meeting to discuss the issues each group had with the estimates and why. Finally, we were able to meet as a full committee via Zoom to work out the issues and agree on the final revenues. These results were presented to the full House and passed by a vote of 316 to 10. This shows what can be accomplished when we work together. Most of the votes taken that day were extremely partisan. You could tell, Republicans, Democrats. They need to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. All right, Kay Galloway's next.
I have a postcard that's been going out to people, and on the back, I said it's time for a change. As your state representative, count on me to work toward more efficient state government. While
Okay, if you can don't turn away from your computer, because we lose your voice when you turn away.
My apology.
Try to look forward to the screen.
You can count on me to work toward more efficient state government while resisting the drive to cost shift to our town's property taxpayers. I'd just like to say that our current members of the House of Representatives, both Republican and Democrat, have faced the challenge. The challenge is working on the budget and working on equity and education across the state. Funding the state government, the executive council, representatives and senators, and generally speaking, fixing education has been a topic kicked down the road. In 2010, the state
Right, we can't hear you right now, Kay.
Okay. Making the cost of attending a New Hampshire university or college the most expensive in the country. Since 2010, I have not heard of any intent to restore that funding. Cost of funding the pensions of state employees has also been devolved to the towns, with next to no COLA being provided for retirees, the police, the firefighters, and our New Hampshire teachers. Providing health care, supporting a woman's right to choose, limiting assault weapons, and other challenges remain just that, challenges. I believe in working cooperatively with Republicans in the State House, just as Norm has just stated, and in overturning the governor's veto when appropriate. I believe in behaving when meeting as a legislature, whether in Concord or at the Whittemore Center at UNH. I believe in finding a more equitable way to fund education and salute the findings of the report entitled Equity and Adequacy of New Hampshire School Funding. A better source for financing the state is still the elephant in the room. Together, a bipartisan solution should be sought. In the recent past, the Executive Council voted finally to support Planned Parenthood, which in our District 3, supports approximately 10,000 women. The opportunity to have birth control, and I believe also that Roe versus Wade should be upheld. In closing, I ask for your vote for my colleagues and myself. It is truly time for a change. Time to not allow the governor to bypass the Executive Council and the Finance Committee when distributing COVID funds. Time to limit assault weapons. Time to protect the health of New Hampshire citizens. Please vote for change in District 14, Atkinson and Plaistow. Please vote for Kay Galloway, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kay. Bob Harp. You need to unmute.
I apologize. I hope you can hear me now. This session, I was asked to talk about some of the issues in Concord that I feel are most important. If many of you can remember 2 years ago during the League of Women Voters debate, every candidate at that meeting took an oath not to increase any new taxes. I followed that oath up this last 2 years in Concord. I voted against any increase in taxes. I voted against any capital gains taxes. I voted against any new taxes. I followed what I promised. I also voted to protect our freedoms and the right to live free in New Hampshire. As a result of my record, just over the last 2 years, my first term, I was the recipient of the Protector of Freedom Award from Americans for Prosperity. I think communication with voters and elected officials are ultra important. This last term, my first term, I ran town meetings both in Plaistow and Atkinson at the libraries, and I held Zoom meetings when COVID came about. I'm always accessible to my voters and constituents that email me and ask for help. I've tried to be very active and concerned, as all are, with our property taxes. In fact, I filed a bill to ask for tax classification for commercial and residential properties to be different, similar to what they do in Massachusetts. That bill did not succeed. My hope was to get relief for our property owners and readjust the payment of the taxes. But I'm not done fighting for all of you up in Concord. I want to go back. I ask for your vote. I want to continue with maintaining the New Hampshire advantage. I believe with me in Concord, I can do that. I also believe that all my votes and ability to work on the Resources and Recreation Committee have helped us in New Hampshire have safer places to recreate, protected our lakes, protected our water supplies. And because of that, I'm able to do that because you elected me as your state rep. I ask again for your vote. Let me continue with my new work up in Concord. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. All right, now we will hear from Nancy Bishop.
So, as I said, I want to make New Hampshire a good place for families to live, work, and thrive. And part of that endeavor would be to, as I said, raising the minimum wage and paid family and medical leave. I think education is very important, and I would like to see the legislature restructure the taxes at the state level so we can get some relief for property taxes. If the School Fairness Funding Commission releases their findings in December, I think we have a basis to work off of, and we should incorporate their findings as far as going forward with funding. I think they've transversed the state and they've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of people, and I think they'll have wise thoughts to share on that. As far as the revenue and the tax base, I do think that's with renewable energy. We need to combat climate change. I do believe that climate change is real. It affects the state as it is with the water levels and the foliage that we depend on for tourism. I think we need to protect our environment, and I think renewable energy is a win-win. I also would like to see another bill for net metering increase in the state. I think that was a mistake that was vetoed. It would give relief to citizens, and it would be a more equitable way of running our energy sources.
Great.
Um,
You have 45 seconds more if you have anything else you want to say.
Okay, and I would just like to say I'd like to continue the efforts, and I really endorse the efforts made for the clean water. That's really important for families that live here. If they can't have clean water, nobody will want to move to the state. and nobody will want to remain in the state. So I support the efforts on clean water and applaud the legislation that will pass in regards to clean water.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Great. George Hamblin.
Great. Thank you, Tatiana. I'm going to start off by just finishing off from my previous statement, which is the fact is, regardless of all the pledges that have taken place and all the other promises about not to raise taxes, the reality is property taxes continue to go up consistently, and there's been no end in sight. We don't see it changing anytime in the near future. And again, our education funding is underfunded. We spend least on K through 12 than just about any other state in the country, and we have the highest tuition rates, state tuition rates in the country as well. So something to think about. New Hampshire's a tale of really two economies. There's a thriving, booming economy for the folks that are really well off. And then there's the quiet economy, the one that nobody talks about, the part that no one will stand up for. For example, over the past year, there have been 3 bills that are just relating on the economy itself. There's the raising of the minimum wage. There was the paid family and medical leave. And third, there was the waiting period for unemployment, which those of us, facing COVID, you need to understand that there's a lot of unemployed in New Hampshire right now. It would have been nice if that period was taken away, so people that were affected adversely by COVID could then be able to get their unemployment benefits a lot quicker, rather than waiting for week to week. The governor gave himself a pay raise almost immediately. So apparently it was okay for him, but the reality is New Hampshire has the lowest minimum wage in New England. It's at $7.25. And I challenge anyone working on minimum wage, which does represent 3% of New Hampshire, to go to Market Basket with that and be able to buy a bag worth of groceries, pay the rent, pay the heat and everything else. It's a reality that a lot of folks have to deal with. Second, I'm going to touch on health a little bit. There was a bill that went through, became law, that would cap the price of insulin at $30 a month, which is a fantastic bill. It's just a shame that all of our state reps in Atkinson and Plaistow voted against it, much like they voted against the paid family medical leave and the way they voted against eliminating the waiting period for unemployment. There was a bill that would involve dental benefits for our senior citizens. That was vetoed by the governor, but was also voted against, again, by our state reps. Lastly, I'm touching on the medical marijuana bill, which would have allowed people with cancer suffering from PTSD to grow their own medical marijuana at home so they wouldn't have to go out. Again, vetoed by all of our Atkinson Plaistow state reps, or I should say voted against. Lastly, I want to touch on some of the civil rights issues. Obviously, there's been a lot of racial tension as of late. So I went back through a couple of bills that I really thought struck at the core of what it means to live free or die. The first one was the conversion therapy bill. For those not familiar with conversion therapy is when you put someone into therapy because they happen to be gay, and the family members think that it's okay to put them into therapy because there's definitely something wrong with them. Obviously, a violation of civil rights. Conversion therapy is something that's been outlawed in a lot of states. New Hampshire was one of the very last ones to actually get rid of it. I mention it here because, again, all of our state reps voted against this bill. They wanted to keep conversion therapy. Lastly, I wanted to mention the transgender discrimination bill. The idea being that if someone's transgender or views themselves as transgender, that they can no longer be discriminated against when it comes to housing or when it comes to a job. Basic fundamental civil rights, okay? Again, every single one of the state reps on this call today voted against that bill. So live free or die. Do you mean it or you don't? That's what I'm going to leave you with. There is a big difference between myself and the incumbents. I just want to make sure we draw the distinction. Again, ask yourself, if you're low income, if you're struggling with diabetes, or if you're transgender or in conversion therapy, are you better off now than you were 2, 4, 6 years ago?
Thank you, George. All right, Lisa, you're up.
Thank you so much. We've touched quite a bit on the pandemic, and we all know it's not going to last forever, hopefully. And looking forward to it being over, but it's really brought to the forefront a lot of the problems that we are facing in New Hampshire. Some of that is the two economies that George just spoke of. But also, we've always had these problems, and this is a really great opportunity to look back on them and really decide how we want to handle them. I really think we need to solve education funding. I know we've all talked about this a little bit, but so many of our children have their zip code determines the quality of their education. And cuts are made in Concord, and they lead to a shell game where they're moving money around, pushing it back and forth, and that still leaves the bulk of the burden on homeowners. Our public schools are struggling, and the governor wants to provide vouchers for charter schools. Charter schools in New Hampshire are already unregulated and nowhere near capacity. We do not need more charter schools in this state. They don't need additional funding, either in federal money or in the district money that would follow students via voucher program. The public schools would lose and our property values would lose. Strengthening our public schools provides the best opportunity for the broadest group of students, and it'll make our communities stronger. This year, the governor cut the business profits tax for the 4th time. It's only paid by the top 25% of companies that are most profitable. Reinstating that revenue stream will provide relief for our schools. We also need to find new revenue streams and attract businesses and workers to our state. We can do that by offering programs and benefits that will attract working families and young families to our state. We need to raise our minimum wage. $7.25 is far lower than any other New England state. And we need to raise it to $15 over time, because the more money we have in our pockets, the more is going to be invested in our local economies. When people are able to worry less about survival and more about succeeding, we all benefit. People aren't poor because they lack character. They're poor because they lack cash. And I believe people who work for a living ought to earn a living. We have one of the oldest populations in the country. We need to bring those workers into our state. We need to offer programs like paid family medical leave so that family members don't have to choose between taking care of loved ones or paying their rent. I believe healthcare is a right. We have some of the highest healthcare costs in the nation, directly tied to our lack of preventive care. We need better systems in place to support our families. We also need to protect the pieces of the Affordable Care Act that are incredibly popular. It's becoming really apparent that there are going to be efforts on the national level to repeal it. And if they're successful, that means New Hampshire families are going to be left behind. We have policies in place right now, or laws rather, in place to protect people with pre-existing conditions and also allow our young people to stay on their parents' health insurance until age 26. These are incredibly popular parts of the ACA, and they need to remain in law. Those are voted against by our current representatives. We need to solve our housing crisis. I worked with Isaiah 58 last year in Salem, and I saw firsthand just how much families are struggling. We have to reinvest in our housing and homeless services. We've cut them from the state budget, and our shelters simply aren't set up for social distancing or safe quarantining. And lastly, affordable quality child care. We need to make efforts in this area. It was hard to find prior to COVID with so many centers closing down. It's virtually impossible to find childcare right now. The waiting lists are months long. A successful economy requires investment in high quality childcare. And working mothers had to leave the workforce due to lack of childcare and school closures. Those are some of the things that I'm focused on, but I'm always open to communication, and I always want to know what's going on in our communities rather, sorry. It's very important to me that I represent everybody, whether they vote for me or not. And I think that that's something that can really be changed in Concord. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Right, Mark Pearson.
Mute yourself.
Unmute.
I'm sure most of the people watching this program, I would hope everybody who's presenting tonight would agree with me that there's just too darn much partisan sniping going on. Disagreement's fine, but sniping, I think we're all pretty full of it. We've had enough. Most of the bills, not all, but most of the bills that I sponsor, I get bipartisan co-sponsor. And sometimes I will tweak my bills because somebody from across the aisle will bring a part of it that I haven't thought of. And it doesn't take away what I'm trying to do. It expands it, it broadens it. Most of the bills that I have filed, and I suspect that the ones I'm putting in this year, came out of committee unanimously and went under the consent calendar. Because a lot of the things we have in front of us are people problems. And if we can try to work together, we can solve them. I worked hard with some of our state reps for pension reform for first responders. We are losing people to other states because of the terrible pensions our first responders have. And some of it's downshifted to the town, so it's a double whammy. We need to make law enforcement so attractive that so many people will want it that we can pick only the good ones. And I have family in law enforcement, and they say aloud amen to that. Some of the issues about healthcare, I serve on the Health and Human Services Committee, and I enjoy working with several people who are physicians. I'm not, but I work in a medical facility. I enjoy working to find ways that we can come up with bills that will pass and will be signed into law. Some of the bills that were vetoed were sincere, but off track. They were too extreme, or they were so very partisan that they got a partisan response. For example, I am very strongly in favor of net metering so that, for example, the town of Kingston, which I represent, can put a large solar array on the old landfill. Trouble is, when we're faced with a bill that says above a certain amount, it has to be sold to utilities at retail cost, then that means the ratepayers are going to pay more, and we pay too much now. And why not a bill that is much more economically makes sense for the people of our area? So again, there's so many issues. I hope to continue the reaching out across the aisle and the bipartisan support so we can come up with some things that no governor would veto, irrespective of which party the governor is. That's what I've been doing since I've been there. I've been a conciliator much of my life, and I want to go back to Concord to continue that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Now we'll hear from Deborah DeSimone.
Thank you, Tatiana. I'd like to touch on a few things that were said this evening. The first thing is that the state is sending down mandates to the communities that the communities are going to have to pay for through taxes. And I just wanted to clarify that Part 1, Article 28 of the New Hampshire Constitution specifically states that the state shall not mandate or assign any new expanded or modified programs or responsibilities to any political subdivision in such a way as to necessitate any additional local expenditures by the political subdivisions. So that's just a correction there. The second thing I'd like to talk about just for a second is Mr. Hamlin is correct. I did vote against the conversion therapy and the transsexual bills because I made a vow that I would never vote for new taxes. And both of those bills would create a new tax, such as the increase in insurance, as well as the FMLA, which would increase insurance, which would increase taxes and create a new tax. So I will continue to vote against the tax, not the bill necessarily, but the tax. So I'm the mother of 3 grown children and I have 4 grandchildren, and education and healthcare is very important to me. And since my second term in the House, I have had the honor of serving on the executive board on the county level. And I was appointed to the nursing home, excuse me, the nursing home committee where I have been chair. Every year, I have sat on the budget committee with many of my colleagues, and we on that budget committee, along with the director of the nursing home or long-term care facility, have worked our budget so hard that we have been able to turn back money to the county every single year. Every year. And when the county could not afford to sustain the medical daycare program, the senior medical daycare program, I, along with Representative Norm Major and a few other representatives, were on a subcommittee, and we studied hard to find a way to take care of our senior citizens and find medical daycare for them that was affordable for our medical for the medical needs of our senior citizens. And we worked really hard, and we did that without increasing taxes, without increasing any funds necessary to pay for that. That's what we do. We don't care if you're a Democrat. We don't care if you're a Republican. We care that you have the needs. The committees that I have been assigned to, we leave our partisanship at the door. We work to help the communities. We don't work because it's a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. It's because the community needs us to work hard for them. The community needs us to make it better for them. That's what I work to do. And I would really appreciate you making your vote for me so that I can go back to Concord and continue my work. That's what I love to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Great. Peter Terosian.
Thank you, Taliana. Prior to the COVID crisis, New Hampshire was leading New England with job creation, and we had the lowest unemployment rate. And that wasn't by accident. That was by our sound fiscal policy and low taxes. As a matter of fact, we heard some early comments that about tracking young folks to New Hampshire. New Hampshire has done better than any other New England state doing that. And again, it's because of our sound fiscal policy. Some of the things we need to address in the next term, we heard about, ensuring that our children get quality education. Well, we need to get them back to school full time. That's and we're coming along with that, but it's very important for them to get back to school so we can achieve that. In regard to charter school funding in New Hampshire, I think there's a misunderstanding there. Charter schools actually benefit low-income and children that have disadvantaged children more than any other group, and that's federal funding. So that's not going to cost the local taxpayer more money. It gives parents and students a choice, and I think most of us know as consumers, when you have choice, you generally do better in whatever the field may be. So that's something we need to work on. I had mentioned earlier about the state budget. We're going to have to address the shortfall in revenue. That's a reality. Until we get our businesses back running at full steam, and we've got several people that have gone out of business. So we're going to need to create jobs again. I currently sit on the Transportation Committee, and we're addressing issues. I have a bill that's pending that passed the House and Senate that it's regarding smart light technology, traffic lights, and that does several things. One is it helps reduce pollution, so cars aren't sitting needlessly longer at lights than they have to. It also helps to reduce gridlock. So that's something that I have pending. We're also dealing with alternate transportation and technology for increased hybrid vehicle use, electric bikes and so forth. So many of those are very beneficial to most people. In addition to sitting on transportation, I also fill in on the election law, Ways and Means, Resource Recreation Committee, Labor Committee, Energy, Science, and Tech. So I've got knowledge and experience in several of those areas. Regarding family leave policy, I, like many of my colleagues, supported family leave as it was addressed and proposed by the governor. That was a family leave policy that didn't raise taxes. The bill that we voted against brought in the income tax in New Hampshire. If you bring an income tax in, we're no longer going to have the New Hampshire advantage. We're going to lose some of those jobs. So in closing, good jobs and good pay are a byproduct of a strong economy. Okay. When you have a strong economy, work is going to make more than minimum wage. So that's how you address that. And again, when it comes to attracting young people to the state, we need to have a viable and thriving employment. So we need companies that can employ people. So in closing, I would just ask you to take a look at some of these issues and realize that if we don't get the economy back and we don't get companies back with people in full employment, New Hampshire's not going to be a great place to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And to close off this round, we go to Kate Delfino.
Thanks so much. I've heard a lot that I agree with here from folks on both sides of the aisle. I'm just going to go back and hit on a few points, as a lot of my perspective has already been summed up by my Democratic colleagues here. But first, I want to say that I believe in bipartisanship as well. And I see a lot of areas of agreement between myself and the Republicans here on this panel. Norm, I agree with you that we need fiscally responsible budgets. Pete, I agree with you that we need sound fiscal policy. Deb, I agree that the community sends representatives to the State House to make it better for them. And Representative Pearson, I agree with you that compassion is an essential element of governing. And I think that fiscal policy and revenue and funding, which has been a theme that everyone has hit on tonight, ties into all of those things. For example, I don't believe that it's fiscally responsible or sound fiscal policy to base our budget so much on one single source of revenue, and that's property taxes. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is because property taxes disproportionately hit the lowest income members of our society. That's not compassionate. That's not making it better. Property taxes, in some cases, are forcing older people out of their homes. That's not compassionate, and that's not making things better. I think as state representatives who want fiscal prudence, that requires more than just making cuts to the budget, cuts to the taxes that we already have. It means that we must aggressively look for other sources of revenue. And I also agree with my Republican colleagues that we don't want to lose the New Hampshire advantage. Everybody loves the fact that we don't pay income taxes and sales taxes here. I love it. Instigating an income tax or a sales tax would be my last resource. That would be the last thing I would want to do. However, I think if we want that to be the case, and we want to be compassionate, and we want to be fiscally responsible, we do have to look at alternative funding sources, which maybe would not be our first choice. And that includes looking closely at a capital gains tax. A capital gains tax would mostly be effective for people who make over $200,000 a year. That may help lower the property burden on the lowest income families. That might be a compassionate choice. We might look at legalizing and taxing marijuana, which some studies have said could gain us $58 million a year. That might be a way that we could improve our education funding. We might even be able to provide building aid for schools like Timberlane, who have students going to school in subpar, aging, past useful life facilities. That would be compassionate. That might be a way to make things better. We may also want to re-examine gambling, casinos. Again, this might be a way to lower our tuition rates at our in-state colleges. It might be a way to, in a fiscally responsible way, it might be a way to lower the student loan burden on our New Hampshire students.
All right, we need to wrap up, Kate.
Thank you. I think that compassion, making things better, and fiscal responsibility go hand in hand. I'm willing to take that walk and do that work if you send me to Concord. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. All right, thanks, everyone. So with that, we conclude our second round and we go into round 3. This will be a very quick round. Everybody will have 1 minute to give your closing remarks. So, and at this time we'll be going in reverse order by alphabetical order, which the opposite of round 1. So Peter Tarosian, you're up first.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in tonight and listening. I just want to reiterate a couple points and bring a couple new ones. I want to point out that I'm one of only 17 reps out of the 400 in Concord that received recognition for 100% attendance and 100% score on behalf of the taxpayers by Granite State Taxpayer Association. I was also endorsed by them. I was endorsed and had a perfect score from Liberty Alliance for protecting your freedoms and liberties. I was also endorsed and had a 100% score from Americans for Prosperity. I would like to, again, thank you for tuning in. If you have questions that weren't answered or have any needs at the state level, by all means, feel free to call me at 603-362-5202 or email me at flybirdair@aol.com. I'm asking for your vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. If you feel you can't make it to the polls, I'm asking you to absentee vote, and I'm asking for your vote that way as well until, again, Tuesday, November 3rd. I'd like to, again, thank you all, and God bless you, the United States, and the towns of Atkinson and Plaistow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Pearson. Unmute. Unmute.
Mark, unmute yourself.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you. You look at your audio settings and see. Hit the little microphone. Is that green? No. Yeah, we can't hear you. All right, Norm, why don't we go ahead with Norm, and maybe Mark can resolve his audio issues in the meantime.
Okay, thanks. All right, thanks again. I've been honored to serve as a state representative for the last 24 years. Throughout my life, I believe that if you live in a community, you should give something back to the community with your free time by either working with the organizations, church, towns, county, state, or country. For more than 50 years, I've served the town of Plaistow in many elected and appointed positions. I've also worked with our youth as a scout leader and been involved in multiple civic organizations. I take seriously my role as a state legislator to help constituents solve their problems, whether it involves the town, school, county, or statewide issues. Prior to the COVID year this year, I had sponsored 172 bills. 94 of these bills have become law. I have thoroughly enjoyed serving you as a state legislator. and look forward to continuing in that capacity. I would greatly appreciate your support and vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Right, we'll go to Bob Harb.
Thank you, Tatiana. There's been a lot mentioned tonight about new representation. As I mentioned before, I'm your newest state representative, having only been elected the last term, serving in my first term. Many of you may know I'm an equestrian. I'd like to equate my running for re-election like riding your horse across the river. I'm sure many of you have heard you don't change horses in the middle of the river. I'd like to ask you all for your vote at this upcoming November election so I can continue with my horse across the river to protect the New Hampshire advantage, to work harder to get tax relief on the property tax that I tried this last term, and to help get us a cleaner and better water supply. Please send me back to Concord. I've really enjoyed being your representative for this first term, and I ask you for your vote. And thank you, and please stay healthy.
Thank you, Bob. George?
Thanks, everyone, for this evening. Thanks to voters for tuning in, and Tatiana. You know, they often say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, that's exactly where we are now. The reality is our property taxes continue to go up and our school funding is abysmal at this point. I ask you to look deep inside and say, do you really want to continue down this path, one of higher property taxes, the school funding, and this not taking care of New Hampshire's neediest when it comes to things like the minimum wage, paid family medical leave, and transgender, and the folks that went through conversion therapy. It's time to make this a true live free or die state. And I ask for your vote moving forward because I think it's time for a change. And there are some big differences between the incumbents and where we need to go as a state. And I thank you.
Thank you, George. You can pass it on to Kay.
I would just like to say that it's time that we stop kicking the can down the road with regard to the funding of our state of New Hampshire. If elected, I will serve conscientiously, will not be absent for excessive days for either excused or unexcused absence, will report quarterly on my efforts in the State House, and will do my utmost to support the towns of Plaistow and Atkinson. I ask for your vote. I believe I would do a good job of representing Atkinson and Plaistow and Concord. I would like to say, in conclusion, that Forbes magazine has just released the information that New Hampshire is the best state to retire in. It is, but it has its challenges. I'm willing to serve, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Now we'll go to Deborah DeSimone.
Thank you, Tatiana. My name is Deborah DeSimone. I have served my community for 22 years as a tax collector and my state for 12 years as a state representative. I have crossed the aisles when it meant that it would create a better state of New Hampshire. And I have made the tough decisions to say no when it would create a better state of New Hampshire. I will still continue to work to better this state for children and families and the education process for those children and families in this state. All I need from you is your vote on November 3rd. I would appreciate your support and your vote on November 3rd to allow me to represent you in the state of New Hampshire in Concord. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Lisa?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say in closing, the main reason that I decided to get involved in politics was because I genuinely want to help people. That's my primary goal. It's always going to be my North Star and my guiding light. And I don't think that you can be compassionate and legislate against people's basic human rights. I think we're all entitled to human rights. And I would never, ever try to take those away from anybody. I know what it's like to grow up on the edge of poverty. I've been there, and I know how hard it can be for working families to find their way out. Coming back from this pandemic is going to take a lot of hard work on a lot of people, and it's going to take bipartisan working together, obviously, but it's going to be hardest on our poorest people, and those are the people who are going to need our support the most, and that's why I'm always going to lead with compassion. I'd like your vote. And I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters and Plaistow Public Television for hosting this event tonight. Thank you so much. I'm Lisa DeMeo.
Thank you, Lisa. And Kate?
Thanks again to the League of Women Voters and to Tatiana for moderating tonight. And I just want to say, I think this has been an awesome discussion about the issues facing our state. I've enjoyed it. I guess for me, the bottom line is, more than anything else, I want everyone in New Hampshire to be able to grow and thrive and succeed like my family has. That's really the reason I'm running. And to that end, I pledge my full-time attention and commitment as your state representative. I pledge transparency and collaboration. I will not be invisible. I will hold regularly scheduled office hours and town halls so that you're able to speak to me in person. I love this community, and serving you in Concord is a privilege and responsibility that I take seriously, and I humbly ask for your vote this November 3rd. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. And now we'll go to Nancy.
Hello. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Plaistow Public Television and Tatiana as well. I think this is vital to the institution of democracy. I think it's important that we voice our concerns and our messages, and we communicate to one another. And I'm sorry, I thought I was interrupted. And I think we need bipartisan support to come out of this stronger. I believe in bipartisanship. It's what is going to make everything function well. I will say that coming from a working class family, I know what it's like to be short on cash and having to be creative. I've worked since I was 15 years old, and I dedicate myself to what I have to do at hand, and do commit to work hard and fearlessly to represent the people in New Hampshire. I humbly ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you. I'm Nancy Bishop.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, Mark. Let's
I
see.
think
Were you
I
able
did.
to- Yes, you found your microphone. All right.
Maybe the next bill I should file is to help people like me who have trouble finding some of these things. But anyway, thank you, and thank you, my fellow participants, and thank you, Tatiana, and to the League. I deeply care about the hardworking people who sometimes have to pick up an extra shift because they're paying too much in taxes and fees and so on. I also deeply care about the hurting. I work with the developmentally disabled, and I know through my work with my wife's medical center, some people, I know their names, I know their stories. I know simply saying, gee, I'm sorry you're hurting isn't enough. Compassion without good, effective policy is hollow. I'm increasingly well known in the various departments, particularly education and health and human services. With the commissions I chair, and it looks like they're going to ask me to do another one, I've demonstrated that it is quite possible to be financially responsible and to get things done for people in need. And I'm full of energy. I've got a lot to give, and I want to go back to Concord to do some more. My name is Mark Pearson. I'm running for the Floterial District 34, and on November 3rd, I ask for your vote, please.
Thank you, Mark. All right, well, that concludes all 3 rounds for our candidates. We thank all the candidates very much for all your thoughtful and candid remarks tonight. We really appreciate you joining on this call. We'd like to remind everyone that you can vote for 4 candidates for District 14 and 1 candidate from District 34 if you live in Atkinson and Plaistow. Please make a plan for voting. If you wish to vote absentee to avoid exposure to COVID-19, you should get an absentee ballot application from your town clerk as soon as possible. When you get your ballot, complete it, sign the inner envelope, place it in the larger envelope, and either return it to your town clerk in person or by mail. And make sure you do that with plenty of time to reach the clerk by election day. If you wish to vote in person, bring a mask to protect yourself and others. If you're not registered in your town yet, you may do so until October 23rd at your clerk's office or at the polls on election day. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for making the time to join us tonight and listen to the candidates and get out and vote.